Have you ever wondered who stood behind Joseph, the dreamer who rose from a pit to the pinnacle of power in Egypt? Everyone knows the story of his vibrant coat, prophetic dreams, and magnificent forgiveness. But there's a mystery few notice: his wife, Asenath. The daughter of an Egyptian priest devoted to the sun god Ra, she seems an unlikely figure in God's covenant story. So why did she become the mother of two tribes of Israel? What secrets lie hidden in her silence that the Bible doesn't reveal? Some even claim she was Joseph's own niece, a theory sparking centuries of debate. What if this forgotten woman holds the key to unlocking a new perspective on God's plan? Join us as we uncover the untold story of Asenath, who shaped Israel's history in ways you never imagined. If you're ready to embark on this journey, drop 888 in the comments right now, hit like, and subscribe to our channel to catch every detail. Get ready, because what you're about to hear might just change how you view the hidden figures of the Bible. The story of Joseph, one of the Bible's most captivating figures, begins like a tragic fairy tale but ends in glory. Born as Jacob's beloved son, Joseph was gifted with prophetic dreams foretelling a future where even his brothers would bow before him. Yet those very dreams ignited fierce jealousy. In Genesis 37:5-11, we see Joseph sharing his visions of sheaves and stars bowing to him, enraging his brothers. Their envy led to a brutal act. They threw him into a dry pit and sold him as a slave to Ishmaelite traders. Genesis 37:28. Picture that moment. A young man, just 17, betrayed by his own flesh and blood, stripped of freedom and future. Have you ever wondered how someone could overcome such pain to become one of Egypt's greatest leaders? Joseph's journey in Egypt is a vivid testament to God's providence. From a slave in the house of Potiphar, a high-ranking official of Pharaoh, Joseph quickly stood out for his integrity and talent. Genesis 39:2 declares, "The Lord was with Joseph, so that he prospered." Though a foreigner in a strange land, he was entrusted with managing all of Potiphar's estate. But fate wasn't done testing him. Falsely accused by Potiphar's wife for rejecting her advances, Joseph was cast into prison. Genesis 39:20. In the darkness of that dungeon, where hope seemed to fade, he held fast to his faith. He began interpreting dreams for fellow prisoners, like the chief cupbearer and chief baker. Genesis 48. Could it be that, even in suffering, destiny whispers to those who listen? Joseph's gift for dream interpretation changed his fate. When Pharaoh was haunted by strange dreams of 7 fat cows and 7 lean ones, none of Egypt's magicians or wise men could decipher them. Genesis 41:8. Joseph, then just a forgotten prisoner, was summoned before the king. With humility and faith, he declared, "It is not in me. God will give Pharaoh an answer of peace." Genesis 41:16. He revealed that Egypt would face 7 years of abundance, followed by 7 years of famine, proposing a plan to save the nation. Astonished by his wisdom and divine insight, Pharaoh elevated him to governor, second only to the throne. Genesis 41:40. From slave and prisoner to Egypt's mightiest ruler, Joseph's rise was miraculous. But at the peak of this glory, another figure enters the story, one history often overlooks. Who was the woman who stood by Joseph in this defining moment? Amid Joseph's dazzling rise, a name quietly emerges: Asenath, daughter of Potiphar, priest of On, the city of the sun god Ra, also known as Heliopolis. According to Genesis 41:45, Pharaoh granted Joseph not only power, but also a wife, Asenath. But who was she? Why is a figure so pivotal, the mother of 2 tribes of Israel, mentioned only fleetingly in the Bible? Her name appears just a handful of times, with no details of her emotions, thoughts, or actions. This silence isn't a mere oversight. It's like a veil hiding a greater mystery, beckoning us to dig deeper. Asenath was no ordinary woman. As the daughter of Potipharah, a priest at Egypt's most revered religious center, she was raised in a world of grand temples, hymns to Ra, and ancient rituals honoring Egypt's gods. Her father's name, meaning gift of Ra, signals a deep tie to polytheism. Some scholars suggest Asenath's name may derive from Neith, the Egyptian goddess of war and creation, hinting she was steeped in a culture utterly opposed to Joseph's monotheistic faith. Imagine this: a woman raised amid incense and prayers to stone gods, now wed to a Hebrew devoted to the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Is this contrast a challenge or part of a grander divine plan? Asenath's presence in Joseph's story is no minor detail. She was his companion during Egypt's prosperous years under his leadership. She bore him 2 sons, Manasseh and Ephraim, who were later adopted into Jacob's covenant, becoming patriarchs of 2 tribes of Israel. Yet why does the Bible render her nearly invisible? Is her silence meant to highlight Joseph's glory? Or does it carry a deeper message about those history forgets? Could Asenath be a hidden gem, waiting to be uncovered, shining with the light of divine providence? Asenath's mystery lies not only in the Bible's silence, but in questions about her origin and role. A provocative theory in Jewish tradition, recorded in the Midrash, suggests she wasn't truly Egyptian, but the daughter of Dinah, Joseph's sister. According to this story, Dinah was violated by Shechem, Genesis 34, and from that tragedy, she bore a daughter. Unable to raise the child amid scandal, Jacob's family sent her to Egypt, where she was adopted by Potipharah and named Asenath. If true, Joseph unknowingly married his own niece, preserving Jacob's covenant bloodline. But is this theory credible, or is it merely an ancient Jewish attempt to explain a foreign woman's place in sacred history? This idea stirs deeper questions. If Asenath was indeed Egyptian, raised in a world of idol worship, how could she align with Joseph's faith? Did she abandon her father's gods to follow the God of Israel? Or was their marriage merely a political alliance arranged by Pharaoh? Genesis 41:45 simply states that Pharaoh gave Asenath to Joseph, with no mention of love or consent. Yet this silence doesn't diminish her worth. Instead, it opens a space to ponder. Could God have chosen Asenath, not despite her origins, but because of them, to show he can transform anyone into part of his grand plan? Asenath's origin leads to a greater mystery: her role in God's divine purpose. As the mother of Manasseh and Ephraim, she was more than a wife. She was a key figure in shaping Israel's future. Her sons were not only adopted by Jacob, but blessed as patriarchs of mighty tribes. Genesis 48 verse 5. Why then is a woman of such impact obscured by history? Is her silence an invitation to look closer at those overlooked in God's story? Could Asenath be a hidden piece of the puzzle, waiting for us to discover how God works through the most unexpected people? Asenath is not just a side character in Joseph's story. She is an essential part of God's covenant plan. When Pharaoh gave her to Joseph, it wasn't merely a political move to strengthen his power. It was a moment woven by God to ensure Jacob's lineage would thrive even in a foreign land. Asenath bore Manasseh, whose name means, "God has made me forget all my hardship and my father's house." Genesis 41:51, reflecting Joseph's healing from betrayal and imprisonment. Her second son, Ephraim, meaning double fruitfulness, symbolizes Joseph's prosperity in the land of his affliction. Genesis 41:52. These names don't just tell Joseph's story. They tie directly to Asenath's role as a mother in the covenant. Pause for a moment and reflect. How could a woman raised in the world of Ra and Naith become the mother of two patriarchs of Israel? Is this proof of God's ability to use the most unlikely people to fulfill His purposes? Jacob's act in Genesis 48, adopting Manasseh and Ephraim as his own and blessing them, underscores Asenath's significance. Notably, his choice to place his right hand on Ephraim, the younger, over Manasseh defies tradition, as if God were signaling that his plan transcends human norms. Asenath's story raises a bigger question. How many others in history, whose names are forgotten, played pivotal roles in God's plan? Are figures like Asenath, barely mentioned in Scripture, truly the cornerstones of God's redemptive tapestry? Her presence in Joseph's life was no accident. It's a reminder that God can turn those deemed outsiders into agents of history's transformation. Have you ever considered that the people overlooked in your life, or even you, might carry a divine purpose far greater than you imagine? While the Bible remains silent about Asenath's life and faith, ancient Jewish scholars sought to fill this gap through stories recorded in the Midrash, a form of biblical interpretation offering deep theological and moral insights. One of the boldest theories about Asenath is that she was not Egyptian, but the daughter of Dinah, Joseph's sister, and thus part of Jacob's lineage. Imagine this: a woman thought to be a foreigner, raised in the temples of the sun god Ra, might actually carry the blood of Israel's covenant. It seems far-fetched, but the Midrash weaves a poignant tragedy to explain her origin. According to tradition, the story begins in Genesis 34, when Dinah, Jacob's only daughter, was violated by Shechem, son of Hamor. From this tragedy, the Midrash claims Dinah bore a daughter, but the family could not raise her amid the scandal and pain. The child was secretly sent to Egypt, where she was adopted by Potipharah, priest of On, and named Asenath. A dramatic detail in the tale is that Jacob, before sending his granddaughter away, placed an amulet around her neck inscribed with a prayer to the God of Israel. Years later, when Joseph took Asenath as his wife by Pharaoh's command, he saw this amulet. What do you think of that moment? A flash of recognition, a distant memory, or a whisper from God confirming that the woman before him was not a foreigner, but family? This story is not just captivating. It carries profound theological purpose. For ancient Jews, the idea of an Egyptian woman becoming the mother of two tribes of Israel posed a challenge, as God's covenant was often tied to the purity of lineage. By giving Asenath an Israelite origin, the Midrash seeks to safeguard the sanctity of Jacob's line. But this raises another question. Why craft such a complex tale? Were ancient Jews uneasy about a foreigner playing such a pivotal role in God's plan? Or was this story their way of affirming that, no matter where she was, God kept his promise to his chosen people? The Midrash also claims Asenath saved Joseph from death. When he was falsely accused by Potiphar's wife, leading to his imprisonment, Genesis 39:20, some traditions suggest Potipharah, possibly the same as Potiphar, intended to execute him. But Asenath, with her keen insight and integrity, spoke up for him, sensing his innocence. Picture a young woman, raised in a world of idol worship, bold enough to confront her father for a Hebrew slave. What drove her? Was it a spark of faith or an early sign that God was preparing her for a greater role? Though not recorded in the Bible, this story offers a new perspective on Asenath. Not just a wife given by Pharaoh, but a woman of will and influence, even before entering Joseph's life. Beyond the Midrash, an apocryphal work titled Joseph and Asenath provides a vividly different perspective, rich with emotion. Written in Greek, likely between the 2nd century BCE and 1st century CE, this text emerged from the Jewish community in Alexandria, Egypt, a city where Jewish and Greek cultures intersected. Not historical, but fictional, it explores questions the Bible leaves unanswered. How could a woman raised in a world of idols become the wife of Joseph, who never compromised his faith? What happened in her heart to make her the mother of 2 tribes of Israel? In Joseph and Asenath, she is portrayed as a stunning, noble woman, proud of her Egyptian heritage. When she first meets Joseph, she is overwhelmed, not just by his appearance, but by his purity and steadfast faith. Yet Joseph, loyal to God, refuses to marry someone who worships idols, declaring that a servant of the Most High cannot unite with a woman who bows to carved images. Can you imagine the tension of that moment? A powerful woman, raised in reverence for Ra and Neith, faces a man who firmly rejects her for his faith. But instead of anger or retreat, Asenath is profoundly moved. The story recounts her embarking on a deeply emotional spiritual transformation. She abandons her lavish life, rejects her father's idols, and enters a period of fasting and prayer. In solitude, she turns to the God of Israel, pleading for forgiveness and guidance. The text describes her smashing idols, tearing her royal garments, and kneeling in ashes to pray, a powerful image of repentance and rebirth. What would happen if you faced someone who challenged your deepest beliefs? Does Asenath's story remind us that true change begins in the heart, even when it demands great sacrifice? Ultimately, Joseph, seeing her sincerity, accepts her. Their marriage becomes more than a union of 2 people. It's a blending of 2 worlds, Egypt and Israel, polytheism and monotheism, past and future. The work goes further, narrating trials after their wedding. An Egyptian prince, jealous of Joseph, plots to kill him to seize Asenath. Through dramatic events, divine justice prevails, and Joseph is exalted. Though fictional, this tale reflects the cultural and religious tensions of its time, when Jews lived among pagan cultures. It asks, how do you hold fast to faith in a foreign world? And it answers that genuine faith can transform even the most distant hearts to God. Asenath's story, whether through the Midrash or apocryphal lens, delivers a powerful message. Faith can transcend all boundaries, origin, culture, or belief. She is not alone in the Bible. Consider Rahab, the Canaanite woman of Jericho, who hid Israel's spies and was saved by her faith. Joshua 2:1-21. Or Ruth, the Moabite, who declared, "Your people will be my people, and your God my God." Ruth 1:16, becoming the great-grandmother of King David. What if Asenath is part of this lineage of foreign women drawn into God's covenant, not by blood, but by their hearts? In the interpretation that Asenath converted, we see a familiar pattern. God is not limited by human barriers. Joseph, who always affirmed that his wisdom and power came from God, Genesis 41:16, would surely not compromise his faith in marriage. This suggests Asenath may have forsaken her father's idols to embrace the God of Israel. Imagine the moment she stood between 2 worlds, the splendid temples of Ra on one side, and Joseph's simple yet powerful faith on the other. What led her to choose the harder path? Was it Joseph's steadfastness or his story of survival and glory that touched her soul? This message resonates beyond ancient times. In our modern world, we often divide people by origin, culture, or beliefs. But Asenath's story challenges us. What if those we see as outsiders are the ones God chooses for his purpose? Are we too quick to judge, overlooking those who could bring profound change simply because they don't fit our mold? Asenath reminds us that God looks at the heart, and a willing heart can change history. Though Asenath's story may be obscured in the Bible, her legacy shines through her two sons, Manasseh and Ephraim. In Genesis 48, we witness one of the story's most moving moments. Jacob, now old and frail, places his hands on the boys, adopting them as his own, equal to his other sons. Genesis 48, verse 5. Even more surprising, when he blesses them, he crosses his hands, placing his right hand, the symbol of greater favor, on Ephraim, the younger, over Manasseh. Genesis 48:14. When Joseph tries to correct him, Jacob insists, "I know, my son, I know. But his younger brother will be greater than he." Genesis 48:19. What do you think of this reversal? Was God sending a message that he is not bound by tradition or human expectations? The legacy of Ephraim and Manasseh extends far beyond their time. The tribe of Ephraim became one of the most powerful in Israel's northern kingdom, producing leaders like Joshua, who led Israel into the Promised Land, Joshua 1, and Samuel, the prophet who guided Israel's first kings, 1 Samuel 3. Manasseh also left its mark as a significant tribe with vast territories on both sides of the Jordan River. Pause and consider. All this began with a woman the Bible barely mentions. Asenath, the mother of these patriarchs, is a vivid testament to how God uses the overlooked to create enduring legacies. Jacob's adoption of the boys was more than a family gesture. It was a theological declaration. By including Manasseh and Ephraim in the covenant, God affirmed that his lineage rests not only on blood, but on his promise and choice. Have you ever wondered why God chose a woman like Asenath for such a vital role? Was he showing us that his plan transcends all boundaries, from Egypt to Israel, from idol temples to his altar? Asenath's legacy through Manasseh and Ephraim reminds us that those forgotten by human eyes are often the ones God chooses to shape history. Though Asenath's story is only briefly mentioned in the Bible, it stands as a vivid testament to God's providence, the way he weaves the smallest threads of human lives into a grand tapestry of redemption. From an Egyptian woman, the daughter of Potipharah, a priest raised among temples to the sun god Ra, Asenath became the mother of Manasseh and Ephraim, two patriarchs of Israel. Pause for a moment and reflect. A woman from a world entirely foreign to God's covenant became an indispensable part of his people's history. What does this say about how God works? Have you ever wondered if the least likely people might be the ones he chooses for great purposes? God's providence in Asenath's story echoes Joseph's words to his brothers in Genesis 50:20. "You meant evil against me, but God meant it for good." This truth applies not only to Joseph's trials, from the pit to prison to Pharaoh's palace, but also to Asenath's presence in his life. Their marriage was not a random event or a mere political alliance. It was part of a greater plan where God used an Egyptian woman to carry forward his promise to Abraham. "I will make you a great nation." Genesis 12:2. Asenath, though obscured by history, is proof that God can transform the most unexpected elements into the foundation of his promises. Imagine this. In a world full of boundaries between nations, religions, and cultures, God chose Asenath to show that he is not bound by such limits. She is a symbol of hope, not just for her time, but for us today. In our lives, we often feel unqualified, from the wrong background, or not significant enough to make a difference. Yet Asenath's story challenges us. What makes you think your past could stop God's purpose for you? She is evidence that God can take the broken pieces of a life whether from idol temples or personal mistakes, and turn them into cornerstones of an eternal legacy. Asenath's silence in the Bible is not an absence, but an invitation to look deeper into what is hidden. The scriptures mention her only a few times. When she was given to Joseph, Genesis 41:45, and when she bore Manasseh and Ephraim, Genesis 41:50-52. There are no records of her words, emotions, or actions. But could this silence be God's way of emphasizing that the least noticed often carry the deepest meaning? Have you ever wondered why some of history's most significant figures are the ones least mentioned? In the Old Testament, Asenath is not alone in this. Moses' mother, Jochebed, is only briefly noted in Exodus 2:1-10. Yet her courageous act saved Israel's great leader. Similarly, Asenath, though voiceless in Scripture, left a legacy through 2 tribes of Israel. Her silence doesn't diminish her value. Rather, it calls us to seek out those overlooked in our own lives. Consider this. Who in your community, a friend, a family member, or even a stranger, is quietly making a difference you haven't noticed? Could God be using them, as He used Asenath, to work wonders the world has yet to see? Asenath's silence also teaches us about humility. She didn't seek the spotlight or demand recognition. Yet her legacy, through Manasseh and Ephraim, resounds across centuries. This reminds us that true significance lies not in having your name carved in stone or celebrated by crowds, but in what you leave behind in God's plan. What if your quiet efforts, your unseen sacrifices, are part of something far greater? Asenath shows us that silent contributions, though unrecognized, can change history. Asenath's story isn't confined to ancient times. It's a call to us today. Many of us have felt lost, misunderstood, or wondered where we fit in life's bigger picture. Perhaps you've thought your past, mistakes, failures, or origins makes you unworthy of a higher purpose. But look at Asenath, a woman born in a world of idol worship, raised in Egypt's opulence, became an integral part of God's promise. What makes you think you can't be part of His plan? Consider a modern example. Many in recent history have overcome barriers to create profound change, despite unlikely beginnings. Think of Harriet Tubman, once a slave, who became a symbol of freedom, leading hundreds to liberty through the Underground Railroad. Like Asenath, she wasn't born into glory, but God used her to do the extraordinary. In your life, are you overlooking your own potential or that of others because of outward limitations? Asenath reminds us that God looks at the heart, not what the world values. Picture this. Right now, you might stand at a crossroads where God is calling you to step out of your past, your failures, doubts, or prejudices, towards something holy. Asenath may have felt out of place beside Joseph, but she let God guide her. Do you hear a similar call in your life? Perhaps it's an invitation to forgive, to start a new journey, or to believe you were made for more. Asenath's story assures us that no one is too distant, too late, or forgotten by God. Asenath's story is more than a tale to recount. It's a call to action. Have you ever wondered what legacy you could leave, even if no one knows your name? Asenath left no speeches or recorded deeds, but she gave the world Manasseh and Ephraim, 2 tribes that shaped Israel's history. Her legacy reminds us that every small act, every step of faith, can create ripples that last generations. The choices you make today, forgiving, loving, serving, could impact someone in the future, just as Asenath impacted Israel. Take inspiration from Asenath and ask, what's holding you back from answering God's call? Fear of failure or the feeling you're not good enough? Her story challenges us to step beyond those barriers. In the New Testament, we see a similar invitation from Jesus. Follow me, Matthew 4:19. He didn't choose the perfect but ordinary fishermen, tax collectors, and societal outcasts. Asenath, though separated by millennia, fits this pattern. Those unworthy in the world's eyes become history changers in God's. So, what will you do with this story? Take a moment to reflect. Is there something in your life waiting for you to respond with faith? Maybe it's a prayer you've delayed, a relationship to mend, or a bold step into the unknown. Asenath left a legacy not by seeking recognition, but by being part of God's greater plan. You can do the same. Imagine this. Your name may not be etched in history books, but your actions could be carved into someone's heart or even transform a community. Asenath's story is your invitation to step into your own sacred legacy today. Asenath's story is a powerful reminder that God works through the least noticed, turning outsiders into pillars of His plan. From an Egyptian woman to the mother of 2 tribes of Israel, she shows no boundary is beyond God's reach. Has Asenath's journey moved you? Share your thoughts in the comments. What about her story resonates with you? Don't forget to hit like, share this video with friends, and subscribe to explore more inspiring Bible stories. May you be guided by God's light, find strength in silent moments, and become part of the legacy He's writing. See you in the next story.